Well, D.C. Williams has a very clever argument saying that we don't actually experience the passage of time. If time is passing, it must be passing in some direction. For instance, this way as opposed to this way. So if we experience the passage of time, we necessarily experience the direction of time. But Williams imagined a time-reversed doppelganger, somebody who lives in a universe in which time flows in the opposite direction from the way that we think it does. We'd have to imagine that physics and entropy was backwards as well, so they'd absorb energy from their environment and take poo and turn it into food, and it would all seem very odd to us, but they would think it was normal. They would have experiences similar to ours. So experience cannot be a guide to the direction of time, and therefore experience cannot be a guide to the passage of time. Now, some philosophers think that a time-reversed doppelganger would be impossible, and I'll leave you to talk about whether or not it is in the comments, but recent metaphysics is really embracing this Williams idea that the passage of time couldn't be experienced even if it was happening. In 2012, which is very recently in philosophical terms, so we're right at the cutting edge of metaphysics here, Simon Prosser said that there is and could not be any experience of time passing. He asks a very simple question. Which one of your experiences is the experience of time passing? Experience doesn't come in one amorphous blast. It happens in discrete chunks. You have an experience of an orange, or an experience of a cloud, or of Olivia Wilde if you're very lucky, and it's maybe not entirely clear how that works, but each one of your experiences in some sense matches up to some unique object in the world, and that's what makes it an experience of that thing as opposed to an experience of any other. Prosser calls this the uniqueness constraint. But when it comes to the passage of time, surely all of your experiences are equal candidates for the title The Experience of Time Passing. None of them will satisfy the uniqueness constraint more than any other. You don't actually have an experience of time passing. Moreover, you couldn't have one. The passage of time isn't something that could be experienced by anybody, ever. Prosser asks, could we build a machine that detected the passage of time? No, not like that. What I mean is something that in an A universe would detect something and go bing, and we'd know that time was passing, and in a B universe it wouldn't detect that thing and it would go and we'd know that it wasn't. But whatever the machine detected would be there whether the universe was A-ish or B-ish. A theorists don't think that there's some kind of special A matter or A wave that the machine could detect that wouldn't be present in a B universe. All the same events would happen whether the universe was A-ish or B-ish, so there's nothing the machine could detect that would settle the question either way. And I think you can probably guess where we're going with this. The same is true of brains. They couldn't detect the passage of time. It could not be experienced. So any arguments for the passage of time which rely on experience must be wrong. Now, if you wanted to challenge Prosser's arguments, you might say that no, there would be different things happening in an A universe than there would in a B universe. For instance, maybe a B universe couldn't have genuine change or causation like McTaggart thought last time. So have a think about whether or not you buy what he's saying with his machine argument. As an added bonus, I actually know Dr. Prosser, so if there are any particularly insightful comments or questions, then I might send them to him, and maybe we could get a reply from a real philosopher. He also gave a public lecture on Does Time Pass? And you can listen to an audio recording of that lecture for free. I will put a link in the description. It's a public lecture, so it's pretty easy going. It talks about the difference between A theory and B theory and some of the details of the theories, and also in particular how Einstein's theory of special relativity affected the metaphysics of time as well. What do you guys think? Do we experience the passage of time? Is it the sort of thing that could be experienced? Send me your questions, comments, queries, comebacks, fan mail, fan art, and fantastic responses underneath the video on Facebook, Twitter, or by email. Next time, I think we should do something a little bit more practical. So we could either talk about should we support the troops, or should the government be secular? Leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and subscribe to join the PSTFanZone if you... First of all, yes, the background has changed because I am at home, I've finished university until September now, but let's see what the PhilosoPhans had to say last time about time. Jacob Bayer said that time passes because we experience it. My reply to that is everything I've just said. Cheyenne Buddha asks, what if past, present and future are indexical terms like here and there and just point out where we are in time? And Planck London said, what if time doesn't pass but we move through time like we move through space? Yeah, what you've both jointly described there is B theory. That's what B theory says. John Sebastian and a lot of other people brought up Einstein and asked how does he impact on the discussion. Space and time are often modelled mathematically as one thing called space-time or Minkowski space. In addition to that, Einstein showed that there's no such thing as absolute simultaneity. Whether two things occur simultaneously will depend on your frame of reference. These concerns would seem to support B theory, and in particular the analogy B theorists make between time and space. If you'd like to know more about that, again, I recommend Dr. Prosser's lecture, which you can find in the description. Emmanuel Ruby on Twitter asked, if the present exists, how long is it? Like, is it instantaneous? Is it a Planck length? What's going on? Presumably, if the present existed, it would have to be instantaneous. You couldn't have bits of it that were earlier and bits of it that were later, which would occur if it was extended temporally in any sense, because that's a contradiction. If stuff's earlier and stuff's later, then it can't be present. Of course, B theorists would say that the present doesn't exist anyway, so no need to worry. Hunter Tony 56 asked a very good question, why isn't McTaggart's paradox considered a popular argument anymore? Because it kind of begs the question against A theory. It assumes that if a proposition is true, for instance the proposition moment t has the property of presentness, that it must be true from whatever bit of time you look at it at. It must be true eternally. Whereas A theory seems to say that it's fine for a proposition to change its truth value over time. So it's kind of assuming that B theory must be true. If you want to know more about that, then again, Dr. Prosser talks about it in that lecture. Bob Sabol and Zippy Fresh said that the present is the only thing that exists and the past and the future are not real. That view has actually been advanced before. It is called presentism. You are correct that it would avoid McTaggart's paradox, but it has its own big problems, one of which Connor McLeod kind of touched on, to do with how can we talk about them truthfully if they don't exist, but that would take a whole other episode to go into, so we'll have to save that for another time. And that's all we have time for this time, so I will see you next time. Thank you very much for watching. Bye!